afternoon to each and every one of you. And as Caroline said, it is lovely to actually see so many of you. I'm Elaine Carl, the CEO here at the Foundation, dialing in from a lovely sunny Limerick. Now, fantastic. We just had a little gremlin in the system there. So thanks to everybody for inviting us into your workspace. I know that for me, you're very welcome into my front room at home in lovely Hospital, County Limerick. Some of you might be doing the hybrid, the virtual, a bit in the office and a bit at home. So thank you for inviting us into your space, wherever that is. So I know that looking at you all there, in addition to many of our Business All-Stars, we've got many of our great supporters and partners here at the Foundation, and also many participants that we've engaged with through the All-Ireland Business Summit. Now, to those of you who have joined some of our previous masterclasses or workshops or seminars, you're very welcome back. I think it's a great sign to have you back. And for those of you for whom this is your maiden voyage with us, I'd like to say thank you very much for joining us. And we hope that the next hour, hour and a half will be a great investment of your time. So just to ensure the best possible experience for us all on here this morning, a small few housekeeping tips. If you could just ensure that your video is turned on, Caroline, I think as you mentioned earlier, it's really great to, if your connection permits, to get that sense of connectivity with one another. If you could ensure, please, that your microphone is muted. There will be Q&As towards the end, at which point, if you are chosen to ask a question, you may be able to unmute yourself, but just be conscious of ensuring that your microphone is muted throughout. Now, I've already got there before you, dropped a greeting in the message box. Many of you have got there after me. So it's just good to be able to see where everybody's dialing in from the sunny southeast to the north, southeast and west. I think we probably have somebody from most counties here with us this afternoon. And as well as that, if something does come up for you throughout today's session, just drop us a message there in the comment box, and hopefully we'll address it in the Q&As towards the end. And as well as that, if you are sharing any notes or anything with regard to your participation in this afternoon's session, just please tag us in here at the All Ireland Business Foundation. And this will just help us to engage in the conversation and also to amplify your reach. So firstly, just while everybody is getting settled in, we still have one or two more joining. I'll just give you a quick overview here at the All Ireland Business Foundation. So for those of you that I haven't met personally yet, my name is Elaine Carl, and together with my colleague Kapil Khanna, we co-founded the All Ireland Business Foundation, which is an autonomous national accreditation body, and we're tasked with enterprise development and the promotion of best in class in Irish business. Now, this is achieved by identifying, acknowledging and supporting the country's most ambitious and visionary business leaders, just like each and every one of you who've taken time out of your businesses and out of your day-to-day to be with us for the next hour, hour and a half. So here at the Foundation, we also host the annual All Ireland Business Summit and monthly gatherings just like this one to promote peer learning and collaboration among our community, which we serve through three core pillars. So firstly, collaboration. Secondly, inspiration, and thirdly, celebration. That is celebrating your business success. So as the awarding body for the All-Star Mark, AIBF recognises best-in-class Irish businesses that merit recognition based on a real independent audit of their performance, reputation, and customer centricity. So in essence, Business All-Star accreditation is the nation's symbol of trust. So if you see a business displaying the All-Star seal, I just encourage you to do business with them because they've independently proven themselves in terms of their trust, performance, and customer centricity. Now, just over the last year and a half, which has tested each and every one of us in so many different respects, here we've actively been networking our members in our community, supported by mentoring and access to enterprise development masterclasses and sessions, just like this one here today. So currently there are just over 600 companies that are accredited by AIBF, which is set to grow to over 750 in 2021. So you might be asking, why would you want to become a Business All-Star? I think today more than ever, we are in a very crowded place and it's important to stand out in a way that not only gets you in front of your ideal audience, but will also allow you to illustrate the value that you and your business brings to the marketplace. On top of that, social proof, third-party verification and trust are some of the most valuable currencies in business. And I know that for me, particularly as a consumer, and for you as well, that it's very important for our consumers to know that they're doing business with the very best, those that can endure, those that are stable both now and will be in the future, and those that have their customers' best interests at heart at all times. But from dealing with so many businesses, particularly over the last 12 to 18 months, we're seeing so much that entrepreneurship can be a very lonely place, regardless of how big your team or your business may be. So our All-Stars become part of a growing community and a tribe of All-Stars, all of whom are forward-thinking, optimistic, and open to new business opportunities. But look, it's not for everyone. You know, I just encourage you to be curious, especially if you take great pride in your work and really value your customers. Or just be curious as to how maybe your brand or your companies could support this national programme and the activities of the All Ireland Business Foundation. So on that note, we're very blessed here to have, you know, support of some great organisations, particularly Permanent TSB, Virgin Media Business, One for All, the Mauve Group, our local enterprise offices, and also Skillnet Ireland. Now, the reason why we're all here this afternoon, so as the saying goes, there is nothing constant but change. And one thing for sure is that the last 18 months have been filled with change, and change, I think, at a speed and at a rate that we've never imagined possible. So as we embark on yet another wave of change, the question comes to the fore as to how can we thrive as individuals, how can we thrive as teams, and how can we thrive as companies? So becoming mentally bulletproof could be the most valuable skill of all. So this afternoon, AIBF is delighted to host a special session for you, our community, on bulletproof through change with Caroline Clark. So Caroline, you're very welcome with us here to join us here this afternoon. So firstly, I'd just like to introduce you. Caroline has over 20 years experience in the business world, having worked at global giants such as Diageo and Coca-Cola. She's extensive experience in the world of advertising and digital agencies and has worked on some of the biggest brands in the world. Now, you may know Caroline particularly from her sporting accomplishments. She's an avid sports person. She captained the Irish women's rugby team for several years. She's an interprovincial hockey player and senior footballer. And she's also, and my hat goes off to her in this, completed an all-female led expedition to the Arctic in 2018 for Deborah Ireland, a charity which is actually very close to our hearts here at the foundation, and we've been delighted and honoured to support them and to partner with them in the past. So Caroline has always been very passionate about people and personal growth, and she merges this business acumen with the sports and life experiences to change workplace culture and practices around mental health and well-being. And her role as managing director for Europe of I Am Here, which aims to embed the belief that it's okay not to be okay. And it's absolutely okay to ask for help into organizations worldwide through their powerful programs. Caroline, you're very welcome, and thank you for joining us here this afternoon. So firstly, I must say that given your sporting background, I'm sure that you're singing from the rooftops with regards to Ireland glory with securing Olympic gold in the Olympics last night.
Oh yeah, look, I woke up this morning to my news feed with the Olympic gold, so absolutely delighted for the guys. And I did a touch of rowing in college, and I tell you, it's one of those sports that really brings you to the limit. But it's not just the rowers. I think I'm particularly proud this year because going into the Olympics, two of my favourite sports were being represented with the Irish men's sevens and obviously the Irish women's hockey team, who are flying the flag for women in sports and certainly living the moment from a media perspective. So yes, I think they're particularly interesting Olympics this year. And don't forget the guys in the gymnastics as well.
They're all doing great representation given the tough year. And just talking about the year that we've had, and I suppose a lot of our experiences over the last year and a half, I know that personally and professionally, and it's something we've spoken about, Caroline, people have been very stressed out, and perhaps it's because of all of the changes in the last year. I'd love to hear your thoughts on this, especially in terms of anxiety and stress, and how best we can deal with this and shift maybe our mindset to one of growth and to take control of all of this change for our betterment.
Yeah, look, and I think the first thing is that the last 18 months has been different for everybody, and everybody's experience is needs to be respected, and everybody has their own story. And actually, some people have really thrived in the last 18 months, particularly people who might have been flying 4 days a week and missing their family and have had a chance to self-reflect. And for others, it's been very difficult. I mean, I was chuckling away to myself there, looking at the photograph there where my hair is a lot shorter and I was certainly about 2 stone thinner. So I'm in the middle of trying to remove my COVID curves. And I know, look, even for myself personally, it's been a difficult year. with the death of my dad, and my mum's been very ill and everything on top. So it has taken a lot for me to even to help myself to thrive in the last 18 months. So and I'm sure that there's other people on the call like that. But the good news is that there's strategies and tactics to enable us to be strong through change. So which I'll be taking you through today. So that's the good news.
Good stuff, Caroline. Look, I'm looking forward to hearing some of your, some of your top tools and tips. So I'll let you take it away. I know that you've shared some fantastic content with us, which I know that when we get into the hands of our audience here this afternoon, hopefully it will really lead to easily implementable and actionable steps that each and every one of us can take to ensure that we adopt the best growth mindset that we can.
Yeah, brilliant. Thank you, Elaine. And look, it's lovely to be here, everybody. I can see, and hello, Gary from Diageo. I know you put in a note there. Lovely to see you. And I think there's a couple of clients here as well. I think I noticed somebody here from Uniphar. And I think there's a couple of my colleagues lurking in the background as well. So look, I am delighted to be here. And I think it's a very good time to talk at the moment. It's July. We're, transitioning through another phase. So I think it's a good opportunity to self-reflect and just see how I can help bring some tactics and tools to you going forward. And outside of my role in terms of I'm obviously an executive leadership coach and mental health coach. And, we work with a lot of tools, and it's always been my desire to share those with people. So not keep them in a book or a folder, but actually share them on forums like this. So look, I'm going to share my screen. I would love some engagement. And can I just say, I'm so delighted to see so many faces. There's so many webinars I go on to and everybody has their camera off. And it's a little bit like walking into a room and everybody has their back to you in the physical space. So I do commend you and I do thank you, because I do feel connected with you today. So thank you. And with that in mind, you're obviously all very enthusiastic. So I would love questions. I would love comments. I will be asking you to do little things throughout. So, the more you give, the more I'm obviously able to interact with you and answer any queries that you might have. So I'm just going to share my screen and okay, so the first thing that I always start with is ourselves. Now it's not now. Okay, so you can see 3 batteries on the screen, I assume. Yeah, all right. So everybody on this call works really hard, and there's so many of us as well that are caring for somebody, whether it's your team members in your company, your team, or a family member or children. So that's why I always start with ourselves, because anyone that's been on any of my webinars before always know that I think our well-being is like a battery. So have a look at the screen there for a second and just think about yourself and where you are at. And some of you may be at 100%, particularly if you've just had holidays and you're feeling refreshed and you're feeling ready for the world that you're embracing now. Others may be kind of at that 50% mark where, you could be on the way up or you could be on the way down. And then some of you may be in the red. And nobody wants to be in the red. And I know certainly when I look back on the last year, probably before Christmas, I would have been in the red. And I took 3 weeks off for my holidays over Christmas to look after myself. And regardless of where you are on the picture there, so whether you're green, red, or orange, there's always steps that you can take to improve. So one would be to kind of stay in the green. The other is to, if you're at 50%, how do I get to 55%? And if you're in the red, then how do I even get from 25 to 30? And there's always steps, and it could be anything to do with sleeping better or going for a walk in the fresh air. They don't have to be big steps that you can take. They can be just small steps that you can take and build up, or replacing some bad habits with some good habits. And linked to this then, one of the things that we do at I'm Here and advocate with all our clients is a self-check. And that's as simple as when you get up in the morning, just simply asking yourself, how do I actually feel today? And, some people, I've been on calls where, that fluffy stuff. It is absolutely fundamental to maintain our well-being. And the only way to do that is to check in with ourselves and listen to our mind and listen to our body. So what we do is, you just ask yourself, how am I feeling today? And based on how you're feeling, what are the steps that you need to take in order to look after yourself and for self-care? Particularly those who are minding other people, and I'll explain what a tribe member is and I'm here later. But if you're supporting other people, you can't support them if your battery is empty. And if anybody's interested, I will be sharing a link later where you can all go on and do a little 10-minute course on why a self-check is important and also how to do one properly, because it's not a checkbox exercise. It's something that needs to be done properly, and it's something that I do every day, and not just once a day, but also throughout the day as well, particularly as my role as an I'm Here ambassador, but equally as a mental health and wellbeing coach. So today we're talking about change, and I was kind of reflecting on this when I was pulling this together, and that change is actually a constant, because it's not really just about the last 18 months either. I mean, pre-COVID too. So if you think about your life as a whole, your life is all about change, isn't it? So it can be changes in your life stages. It could be, some of you may have changed jobs a few times. There could be restructures, redundancies, loss of friendships, moving countries. So really, when you think about it, it is a series of changes. I think what the last year has probably done, though, is shown us how unpredictable life can be, and that we need to be adaptable and flexible, and also what I call realistically optimistic. And that's up to today. But when I look forward now, I suppose over the next few months, I think we are about to experience another big shift. And this is where I want to bring in a little bit of science, and I promise I won't do it for the rest of the call. But I'm sure many of you will have heard of neuroscience and neurological pathways. And, we've got neurons in our head, in our heart, and our stomach. And when you think back in the last 18 months, they've actually all changed. So scientifically, we've all actually changed in the last 18 months. And because we've changed how we live, we've changed how we work, we've changed how we play. Well, we haven't actually had enough of that. And also how we connect with other people as well. And now, as we transition out of the pandemic, we're being asked to change again. Some people will be going back to their offices full time. Some people will be going back to their offices maybe 2 or 3 days a week, but it's certainly not going to be the same as before. And it's certainly going to be different to what we've experienced in the last 18 months. For an introvert, going into the office again could be really difficult. And that's very different to an extrovert. A 24-year-old may be dying to go back to the office because they want to party with their friends, where a mum or a dad may want to, be at home some of the days and go into the office as well. So the point is that regardless of who we are, our habits are going to change over the next few months. But this is also an opportunity to reflect. And I suppose this is where, the growth mindset comes in, which I'll be talking about in a moment, because I like to see, sorry, that's just a fly. I like to see opportunities in I suppose in the face of adversity. And I think from talking to many clients as well, companies are trying to reflect on pre-COVID and the stats around mental health and well-being in the workplace, and also the impact of COVID. And they are attempting to create the right environment for their team members over the coming months. And that's really commendable, and it's complex as well. So anybody on the call today who's trying to do the right thing, well done, and keep at it, because you'll be the ones that'll get it right, and you'll pay dividends in terms of building that trust with your team members. But also, why wait for those of you who work for a company, or even leaders here who are waiting for kind of inspiration from outside? A lot of you have it in you already. And it's about bringing your strengths to the party and really sitting down and reflecting on what's right for you and what's right for your team and what's right for your company. And ultimately, it comes down to how do we all want to live as people in terms of work and life? I don't necessarily believe in the concept of work-life balance because everything's interconnected. So what happens is different parts of your life are prominent at different times. And it's just about then working around what those kind of big things are in your life at that time. So I think the first thing to do again is really thinking about what are the goals for yourself? How is it that you want to live? And if you own a company, how do you want to live and have a company and provide safe and supportive environment for your team members where they can thrive as well? So it is important to create goals for yourself, and it's very difficult to create goals if you don't know yourself as well. And I often think about the fact that I didn't understand what my strengths were, my value system, who I was as a person until my 40s. I went from company to company. I enjoyed the work. I certainly loved all the people I worked with, but there was always something missing in my life, and there was always a frustration, and there was always, I suppose, when I learned later, there was a clash of value systems in some of the companies I worked with. And it was only when I wasn't well mentally myself in 2013 to 2015, and I went to life coaching myself. For the first time in my life, I actually sat down and worked on what my strengths were, worked on my value system, did mind mapping, understood who I was as a person. And I also think that's ridiculous. Like the fact that I didn't do that till my 40s. And that's why I'm really passionate and really, really super excited that we're actually going into primary schools with I'm Here in September to help children understand emotional intelligence, feelings, compassion, and all those behavioral skills that we all need in life beyond academia. So what I'd say to you today is that if you do have some time over the next couple of months, think about how you can just reflect on who you are and what it is that you want as well. And to help you with that, these are just a few things that you can do at. So there's so many ways that you can do it, from working on your wheel of life across all dimensions of your life to understanding your emotional intelligence, to understanding your strengths as well, looking at how you're compassionate with yourself, and then the clear skills through I Am Here, which I'm going to talk to you about later. There's a fabulous little book that I've done, which is Your Best Year Yet by Ginny Ditzler. It'll take 3 to 4 hours, and it's a fantastic kind of shortcut if you don't have the time to maybe potentially go to see a coach. And I'm going to give you the links to all of these at the end, but this is a lovely opportunity to kind of create your base. So this isn't even about change, but what it does do is set you up for success by knowing yourself a little bit better. And also don't forget that if you are working for companies, that human resources is there to support you. And oftentimes there's lots of great policies and support from human resources that we don't even know about. So do tap into those as well. So that's all yourselves. I'm just wondering if there's any questions or comments coming in on that before I move on.
I think, Caroline, it's just great to know that you'll be sharing the links to these. Do you know what I mean? So people in their own time, when they do have that breather, can link into these resources.
Yeah, exactly. So what I'll be doing is I'll be sending some slides to you that you can share out to the group afterwards. So particularly some of the tools that I'll be going through today, so that people can actually practice them on a daily basis as well. Brilliant. So very happy to share that.
Great.
Okay, so managing change positively starts with your mindset. So a growth mindset is not just fundamental to being a principle of changed management. It's also a fundamental to thrive as a human being. the concept of growth versus fixed actually was first developed by a woman called Carol Dweck, and she did a lot of research for, she's a professor of psychology in Stanford University. And when she did her research, it showed that a growth mindset benefits because it actually improves your resilience. What she also discovered later was that most of us actually have a combination of both. And I think that's good news for all of us, because I think it's one of those ones where we kind of go, no, we all have to have a growth mindset all the time. But actually, it's dependent on the situation and where you are and what triggers us as well. So certainly, have to be careful now. If I'm arguing with my hubby, I probably have a bit of a fixed mindset because I'm listening to win. But but my children, I'm a bit more of a growth mindset. But anyway, that's neither here nor there. But the point being is that it can shift depending on what's happening. And also it depends on how resilient we are as well. And that will also define whether we're fixed or we have a growth mindset. And also, if we're feeling low as well, that may impact on whether we've got a growth mindset or fixed mindset. And I'll talk about that a little bit later. But what I'd love you to do is, when you think about a growth mindset, what I'd love to do is just in the chat box, if you could give me some phrases or language that people use to depict a growth mindset. So because again, it's one of those ones that, growth mindset is kind of bandied about a lot. So I'd love to just get a sense of what people's understanding are, because most people know more than they think. So I'd love to just use the chat box there, and we'll just have a quick chat and see before working on yourself. Yeah. Vision, flexible, lovely. Sustainable development. Yeah. Let's try it. Love that, Nessa. Open-minded. Yes, Karen, definitely. Curious. Absolutely, Ted. Thinking differently, Barbara, absolutely. Take action, no limits, love that, Elaine. Rise ourselves by re-rising others. Ooh, very nice, Colette, I love that one. Innovative, curious and listening to others, listening, positive, yeah, brilliant. What's the next step? Really nice. Always open to learning and seeking opportunities. Listen, I don't know why I'm here at all, because you all seem to know it all. A collaborative and open. Absolutely. So let's just have a quick look at some examples. So you're absolutely right. Failure is an opportunity to grow, and which obviously leads to risk taking, I guess, and not living in the status quo. I can learn to do anything I want. Challenges help me grow. Feedback is constructive. I particularly like that one, particularly in the world where I came from, which is all advertising and ideation, where it's quite personal and you put a lot of your own mind and your own ideas into things. My attitude and effort determine my abilities. I personally love that one, because I think as humans, we tend to think about our abilities, again, coming through the academic system as well. So I think that piece around effort and attitude is a big one. I also love, I'm inspired by the success of others. That can be quite difficult in a working environment that could be quite hierarchical or could be quite competitive. So I think that piece of standing back and admiring or being inspired by others is lovely. I like to try new things, so that's come through as well. And I think just overall, I can and I will. And obviously with the fixed mindset, failure is the limit of my abilities. I'm either good or bad at it. I don't like to be challenged. I can either do it or I can't. My potential is predetermined. Feedback is personal, and criticism. I stick to what I know, and I feel threatened by the success of others. And I also hide my flaws. And it's funny because I was chatting to my 11-year-old last night, and he was having a friend over, and he was totally coming out from a fixed mindset. I was actually writing this as we're speaking, and everything was like, oh, there's nothing to do. I'm going to be this. And there was just like, there was just no options coming out of him. And it's one of the things I do with my kids actually is, if they have a problem, I always ask them what would they do first and what their options are, to get them thinking about options rather than that fixed piece. But also I always say to them, there's always a solution. Let's sit down and try and work it out. So that kind of questioning yourself and pushing yourself beyond things or beyond challenges and looking at options are huge. So, if any of you do have children, then it's a good thing to observe. The other thing to note is that as you get older, it's more difficult to maintain. So whilst everybody on this call, we can develop our growth mindset over time, certainly when you get into your late 70s and 80s, you definitely become more fixed. And like I would notice my mum, who's 81, there's less flexibility there than before. And that's, again, just kind of linked to the science of your brain. So a couple of things. There's three common misconceptions about growth mindset. And I'm just going to go through them here now with you. The first one is I have always had a growth mindset, and I always will have. As I said before, a pure growth mindset doesn't actually exist, which we have to acknowledge in order to attain the benefits that we're looking for. We're actually a mixture of both, and that continually evolves with experience. And it's interesting because I was coaching a team there about 3 or 4 months ago, and we did a whole workshop on growth mindset, and I did a questionnaire with them. But one of the things that came out was that, before COVID, that they felt that they had much more of a growth mindset. And actually, through their experience of the last 18 months, they had moved more to the right in terms of the fixed mindset. And I just thought that was very interesting. So the challenges of the last year could have potentially impacted on how we see the world. And maybe that's just because a lot of options were just shut down for us, and where we were kind of forced to live in a particular way. So this is one of the reasons why I wanted to bring this up today, that there's so many people here today that would have naturally had a growth mindset, coming to would have been their main approach, and maybe it's just taken a little bit of a hit. So today is a lovely opportunity to get it front of mind as well. Also, people confuse a growth mindset with being flexible or open-minded, or with having a positive outlook. It's not just that, as that. It's obviously more than that. The other thing is people think, and this would, particularly with children, I think this is an important point, or if you are a team leader, or you own your own business and you have teams, a growth mindset is just about praising and rewarding effort. It's not just that, it's actually about outcomes. So unproductive effort is never a good thing, and it's critical to reward not just the effort, but the learning and also the progress, and to emphasize the processes that also help produce those results as well, such as seeking help from others, trying new strategies, and capitalizing on setbacks to move forward. In all of the research, the outcome, the bottom line, follows from deeply engaging in these processes. And it's interesting, actually, because again, just coming from my sporting background, and sports psychologists, for example, would always talk about the praise piece. And when you're a sports person, it's not so much about the praise, it's actually how you got there. So say, for example, we have, I'm running up to take a conversion in rugby, and I do it really, really well. A good coach will say to you, "Got brilliant, well done." The reason why I'm praising you is because you took the 5 steps, you took step to the left, you had your body in the right way, you ran and you approached the ball the way you curved your foot. So they'll always talk to you about the process of how you got the result that you wanted, because then that's where you learn that that process is important when you take on a task another time. So this is an area I particularly like. And again, for anybody who's parents, when I praise the kids, I generally tell them why I'm praising them, so that they understand, again, just so they can understand the process and also the outcome. So that's a particular favorite of mine. And then if you support a growth mindset, good things will happen. So I hope I'm not bursting any bubbles here. That's not the case. I did see obviously a comment coming through there about risk taking. So the whole idea about growth mindset is that you do take risks, and by failing, you learn. And obviously, in business, we tend to take calculated risks as opposed to just risks. And so organizations that embody a growth mindset then do encourage appropriate and obviously calculated risk taking. And they know that some of these risks won't happen. And I think this can happen a lot in NPD, for example. Like I always loved Ben and Jerry's, for example, and they always had, the graveyard for the ice creams, is that let's try these things out. Or I look at the likes of Mondelez, when they merge Kraft and Cadbury's, oh my God, they've had the best fun in the last few years, because they've been like merging the Oreos with the Cadbury's and all the different products into different formats, and then just getting them out in the market to see what people like, and knowing that some of them won't. But also what companies do, or leaders, is that they reward employees for the lessons that they've learned. And like, I know we do that at I'm Here as well, that we always kind of sit down afterwards and go, well, what went well? What could we've learned? Or, I had a bit of a car crash and something a few weeks ago, and we just sat down as a team. And we all said, like, this isn't all on me. There's like a team that pulled it together. So actually, what did we learn out of this, and what would we do differently? And that's the important thing. And everybody feels safe and supported to be able to do that. And what this ultimately does is it promotes collaboration and trust across teams and businesses, and also means that there's less competition as well. So it really is all about everybody going for the same goal, with the same growth mindset, and not just in words, but also in action. Okay, so would you be up for a bit of homework? This isn't for today, but what I'd love you to do is, and again, I'll send this out afterwards, is because obviously I could spend a whole hour and a half just on growth mindset, but I thought I'd just, in terms of bringing this into the real world and making it practical, what I'd love you to do is maybe this week, and remembering that many of you on this call already have a growth mindset, so it's just really about refreshing it. And also for those of you who may have taken a bit of a dint in the last year, this is a lovely opportunity to just try and improve your growth mindset. So this week, what I'd love you to do is become aware of the internal commentary that shows up when you're faced with a change or a difficulty, or if you've made a mistake or hit a setback or received some form of feedback that you didn't like. And what I want you to do is just write them down and describe the situation and thoughts that were triggered by it as well. So think about the language then, and we call that learn to hear your mindset voice. So like, what are you saying to yourself? Are you saying, I can't do this, I'm not good enough, I'm not smart enough, and God, I failed the last time, so I'll probably fail again? These are all the types of thoughts come from a fixed mindset. But equally, if you're saying the complete opposite of that, that is fantastic as well. And then you can think about how you can bring that forward into future challenges as well. But if you are having more fixed mindset things, just think about the power to choose. So write it down, and it doesn't matter if you've come out of a situation and you reflect and you kind of go, Jesus, it's a bit more fixed. That's absolutely fine too, because we're constantly learning as well. Because when you're aware, then you have power. And you do have the power to choose whether you to continue with that mindset or to shift to a growth orientated one. So it could be something that's happening to you that, there'll be a follow-up, and then you go, do you know what? I'm just gonna flip it this time and just see that if I'm a bit more curious, I ask more questions, etc., what will the outcome be? And I can guarantee that it will be very different to the previous one. So things like, if you are having difficulty in your task, rather than saying, oh, I can't do it, kind of go, actually, I might be finding this difficult, but I'm going to put in the effort to try and master it, because I'm just going to make the effort and put the time into it. Or, just reassure yourself that, there might be people around you that you admire, and you kind of go, geez, they made a load of mistakes and look where they got to still. So kind of use the inspiration of others as well. So that's just a little exercise for you guys to do. Feel free to do it. You don't have to do it, but it's just a lovely way to try and get it into front and center over the next few weeks. Okay, some lovely pictures there. Facing change is more than mindset. So if you look at the pictures there, some people, if there's a change facing them or they're living through change, it can be a bit of a horror show for people. For others, the dolphin there can kind of go, look, it's rocky waters, but, I'm going to get to the other side. And then there's other people who are resilient, growth mindset, and will, just see it, it's calm, it's cool. I know what to do. I'm going to get through it. But can you think of any other factors beyond, say, your growth mindset that would impact how you react to it? So if you're facing change, so beyond growth mindset, what are the other things that could contribute to how you manage or thrive through change? It's about the journey. Any ideas, anybody? Other people influences, yeah, absolutely. External pressures, yeah. How you are in yourself, absolutely. Mindfulness supports, loss of control, experience, yeah, absolutely. Energy levels, totally, yeah. Early learning and experience, yeah. Mental health, staff issues, unclear succession planning, absolutely. Stress levels, yeah. So I think you've got a good grasp on it there, because I never want to think that just because you have a growth mindset, it's rosy in the garden. So a couple of you alluded to it yourself in terms of yourself and how you're feeling. So yeah, so where are you on your battery, for example? So if you're in the red, is it more difficult to face changes? I know certainly for me, before Christmas, when I really was in the red, just to get out of bed, I actually had to meditate for 3 to 5 minutes, because it was just incredibly difficult for me. And that's because I was in the red. There was just so much going on. Absolutely. Somebody mentioned people around you. So if you're surrounded by people with a growth mindset, for example, then it'll have a massively positive impact on you as well, particularly on a continuous basis. I remember working with somebody at one stage, and they did have more of a fixed mindset. And the impact that had on me, I kept on having gone into meetings going, growth mindset, growth mindset, growth mindset. But I felt that I was constantly it was actually quite draining as well. So I think that piece around surrounding yourself, or just being, pushing the growth mindset agenda when you're with people who may be struggling in that area, because sometimes it may not be all them. And also what's happening in your life at that time. So there may be just too many changes all at the same time as well. And you might be focusing well on one of them and going like, I really need to prioritize this because it's so important. And that can be a personal thing. It can be a work thing. It doesn't really matter, but you may prioritize what you need to put your energy into. And that's why it's so important to do your self-check as well, because how you manage change is all about how you actually are, regardless of your natural makeup. So again, I would encourage you to do the I'm Here self-check, and I'm going to gift it to you at the end with the link. Okay, so you're probably going, okay, when are we going to get some strategies and tactics? So rather than giving us some homework. Okay. Okay. Strategies and tactics to deal with change. So the good news is there are lots of ways that you can, and strategies that you can use to face change head on. And walk towards change is probably the other phrase that I would use, and manage it successfully. So obviously developing your growth mindset is one. But there's a couple of other strategies and tactics that I can use, and there's obviously lots more, but obviously we're stuck on time today. So the first one, and you'll wonder why there's a scarf on the wall, is because the model is called SCARF, and it's been created by David Rock. And it's something that I use a huge amount, not just when I'm facing change, but also to avoid conflict as well. And I can certainly talk about that another time. So, according to David Rock, there are 5 areas that can threaten us when change is coming our way. And I thought this was one of the best tools to use today, because when we are facing or walking towards change, we don't know what's going to trigger us, and we don't know what the impact of that change is. So just having an understanding of kind of those 5 areas that may impact you means that when you are facing change, you can actually sit down and have a think about what might be at risk or what might be threatening you as you head into this change. So, and it also means it helps you deal with your fear. So fear is future events appearing real. And I love that. I use it all the time myself, because I kind of go, what's the point in worrying it now? It hasn't happened. But also understanding what those triggers are is brilliant. And it also helps you avoid conflict and manage change positively. So the first one is status. So we all have a human need, and that's what I love about this tool, is that it is ingrained in what our human needs are. So we all, and look, and some of this is also about ego, by the way, because we have our little egos over here, and then we have our intruders over here, and then we have the monkey in our brain, which we'll talk about in a minute. But we all want to feel important, and we all judge how others perceive us, and also sense our power, particularly in work, particularly in a company where it could be quite hierarchical. For other companies, it's very flat structure, so this may not be right. So our goal then is to prove our value or importance to others and reassert it if needs be. So if change is I'll go into the tool in a minute, just in terms of how you practically apply this. So the next one is around certainty. This is a big one when it comes to change. So it's a sense of certainty in our lives, because when you don't have certainty, and you think back to the last 18 months, that's all be around fear, anxiety, and also can, have defensive reactions. So really what we're looking for is information to provide clarity and certainty, because clarity and certainty means that you can make decisions and you can plan accordingly to suit you and your life. Autonomy, then, a sense of empowerment and independence. We get to make decisions versus someone else all the time, and this would be particularly realistic in kind of large corporations where there's lots of layers, lots of departments as well. And I've worked in companies where I remember they did a kind of a survey, and they basically said there was like too many talented people at the same level, and none of them could actually get promoted, and there was no sense of autonomy. So that'd be a big one. So this is all about creating options and solutions to make choices as well. The second last one is relatedness. So what do we mean there? So that's that sense of belonging, being family, group, community, or like a team as well. So people we don't know can be perceived as a threat. Look, but also if you think about the last year, there's definitely been an impact on that relatedness and that connection piece within the workplace. So that's something that we all need to work on. So really our goal is to connect with people, and also even if they may not be the best people for us at the time as well, depending on what's going on in your life. And then last but not least, a big one, fairness, a sense of right or wrong, overall balance of fairness. So that could be things like, there could be a change coming, there could be a restructure coming in your business. And it might impact you in a way that you hadn't expected, and you may not think that's fair, etc. So really, that's about rebalancing the scales of fairness. So that's the model. Just think of a scarf: status, certainty, autonomy, relatedness, and fairness. And I'm going to share this with you afterwards. So don't worry about all the writing for the moment. I'll take you through this. Now, this is a scarf for me. There's also a scarf for others as well. But essentially, if you think about a change that's coming up, and I mean, you could write it down on a piece of paper right now. So as I'm talking through this, what I'd love you to do is just actually fill it out. So if you can think of a change that is coming up that you know about, then I want you to do the following. So say, for example, I'm going to use an example of me going back to the physical world. I'm going to be visiting clients again. I'll be going on sites, etc., etc. So in my head, I'm going to, okay, for me, status, is my sense of importance, value being threatened? No. Has my role changed or my job status, when I'm going into this change? Am I struggling with this change? And what I want you to do is, if you've sensed that status is something that is going to be threatened, then what I want you to do is write down, what are you struggling with in terms of status? What does it mean? And then what I want you to do then is demonstrate value. How can I demonstrate value or help others see my value? And again, a lot of that's going back to the growth mindset. So that could be where, for example, there's a couple of team members on my team, and they're being introduced to clients at the moment. So I'm saying, look, really for you, it's about creating credibility. Putting a stamp on your status in that relationship. How can you do that? You can drive the agendas, you can drive the meetings, etc. The next one is certainty. And that's something that probably impacts us all when it comes to change. So I think this is relevant to everybody on the call. So really thinking about, well, what's ahead for me? That I know. Is there change? What's going to happen to me? And I can remember being part of a restructure a few years ago, and I was in a department that everybody said it wouldn't be impacted in the restructure in any way. Be the one department that wouldn't have been touched. It was the only department that was actually impacted. So you can imagine what that did to the team. So I did a series of workshops with them in terms of managing change. So, are you getting enough information? Am I losing trust in others or the company? Or what? And then it's like, what information do I need to help me stop worrying or catastrophizing as well? And that's where line managers are important, that if you are going through change, that you go to your line manager and they're there to support you and get the answers that you need. Autonomy then, have options been taken away from me and I'm not involved in decision making? Or do I feel trapped in my role with no empowerment? Am I caught in politics? So what do I need to do? And I'm going to go through, this is linked to another little lovely model called the CIA. So what options could I bring forward to gain a sense of empowerment? Relatedness, do I feel disconnected from others or certain people? And that's very relevant right now, where people are disconnected. And there may be people on this call who may continue in a fully virtual environment. So how do I influence getting involved thinking about what you're being excluded from, and do I belong? So, again, so how can I influence that? And last but not least, how come he or she gets paid more than me for the same job? Or it could be, how come my job is under threat and the others isn't? Or how come? So just writing these down. Or how come I didn't get considered for that promotion and they did? So they're just little examples there. And then look at different perspectives as well. So that's something that you can do. I use this all the time. I actually use it before I go into meetings as well, for myself as well, particularly if they're going to be difficult meetings, or I know there's a change coming, that I just have my head in a good space, that I've kind of worked out where my triggers might be and how that might impact then on my behaviors as well. So are there any questions on that before I move on? Because I'm really conscious that that was quite a lot there. So do people get it? Oh yeah, good, Stephen, thank you. Big fan of the scarf model, brilliant. Thanks, Gary. Yeah, so there's any questions on that? No, maybe you want to save them to the end. Okay, let's see. Okay, so managing thoughts and self-talk. So we talked about in the agenda that we would talk about kind of taking control. And some of that is internal. So, your mind plays tricks on you. So, I was talking there about, your ego could be on your right shoulder, your intruder should be on your left, but it's all being driven by the monkey that's in your brain. So second piece of science, and I promise I won't bring up science again, but I think it's really important to link mental health, well-being management to psychology and evidence, because you can't argue with that, can we? But essentially what happens is when messages come into our brain, they actually go into our middle brain first, which is where your monkey lies. That's all your emotions are kind of in the middle of your head. And then the human part of your brain is at the front. So unfortunately, the monkey gets all the messages before the human. And he or she is there to basically just create chaos in your head. And we have to take charge of that and manage that monkey. There is a lovely book, if anybody's interested, called The Chimp Paradox by Professor Stephen Peters, if anybody does have difficulty managing that monkey. But I use some really simple things. I talk to it all the time. So I'd be going, Jesus, that's the monkey talking. And I would tell it to shut up. If I'm ruminating in bed at night, I curse at it, I shout at it. And again, in psychology, that is actually one of the recommendations, that you're really, really stern with that monkey, because they are there to really they're not particularly nice. They mess with you. So just talking to it all the time, you kind of go, is that my monkey talking, or is that the human talking? And the other thing that happens as well, what the monkey does is he takes kind of memories as well of things that have happened in the past, and he puts meaning onto them. So that's where you kind of go, like, the monkey's kind of talking there, and just because it happened the last time doesn't mean it's going to happen this time. So it really is about having a dialogue with the little chimp inside your head. So let's build awareness of our thoughts and self-talk. So just take a moment and just think about, kind of how your thoughts and self-talk in your head have sounded today or in the last few days. Have they sounded positive, empowering, and motivating? Kind of that, come on, you can do this. Or has it been really negative and disempowering and debilitating? Like, for instance, I don't know how I'm going to get through this. And again, this can all depend on what's going on in your life and what's impacting on you. And sometimes it can be really hard. So then what I want you to do is just think about a particular task or event or a meeting that you thought might be challenging before it actually took place. Like I was talking to somebody who was going for a job interview there recently, and she had worked out in her mind, her monkey was telling her that one of the particular people was going to be really difficult in the interview, and she'd made up her mind, and it was going to be really, really hard. So I gave her some techniques before she went into the interview to help her out. When she came out, she said she was the nicest person in the room. So she had allowed kind of that monkey brain to kind of take over and create an illusion for her, which completely impacted on how she was approaching the interview. So think about an event or an engagement or something that took place and that you might have been challenging, and just think about like, what were your thoughts beforehand? Like, how were you talking to yourself? Were those thoughts negative or positive? It's a bit like me even coming into here today, because I do have intruder syndrome sometimes, and my monkey can be a real monkey. So I always I've set myself up now that I talk positively to myself before I come in to sessions like this, and I put a beam of light around me to protect me. But just think about that event where, either they were negative or positive, and how do they impact on you in that meeting or event? How did it affect your emotions? How did it affect your behaviors? What were the outputs of that event? Was it positive? Was it negative? And then maybe think about, maybe after this meeting or this session here today, maybe reflect on that event. If it was positive, great, but still think about what learnings you got. But if it didn't go so well and the outputs weren't that great, what would you change? How would you reframe it? How would you think about, the thoughts that you could have going in to help prepare you again? And that leads nicely into the next model, which I'm going to share. And that is around taking control. So after you've taken control of the little monkey that's in your head, there's a lovely little model called the CIA. So just think about the CIA in the US. But what I do is I think about it, particularly today, because this is, it is about you personally, but it's also about the workplace. But it's kind of I call it the me, us, and it model as well. So when you're going into change and something's coming up, change, first of all, is about yourself and the fact that you only have control of your thoughts, your feelings, and your behaviors. And you can't wait for others to make a change for me. And I would have noticed that before in the work environment where, people might be blaming people for things all the time. And I'm just going, but like, what can you do? Like, you're reacting in a particular way. You can control how you think, how you feel, and how you behave. And I'm not saying it's easy, by the way, because all of this is a journey and an ongoing journey as well. And then I kind of bring it into the us. So say, for example, there's a change coming. I'll go, okay, let's deal with me first. Okay, right. Then the us, like, how can I influence what's happening around me? How can I influence the team that I work with? Based on a shared vision, for example, because there are always things that you can influence, and I think the CIA has been used quite a lot in the last year and a half, regardless of, I think Jerry Hussey talks about it quite a lot in that kind of like, what you can control, what can you influence. But in the work perspective, there is the opportunity to work with your team in terms of how you can influence what's happening around you based on a shared vision. And then I use the it, which is kind of the company piece. My actions and the actions of those around me will influence how we achieve something collectively. And that's where I kind of go, particularly in a company where, like, I was working with a company a while ago, and there was I suppose there was a feeling that there was a lack of direction coming from the top. So I coached them on this model and I said, well, look, just because it's happening at company level doesn't mean that you can't make changes. So if you want to work in a particular way, work in a particular way, work with your team, and then ultimately that'll influence how the company works anyway. And then there's that whole idea of acceptance. So there are things that I need to accept that are outside of my control. And I think, again, I think the last year has been a great example where we've had to accept a lot of things. But how can we bring that forward now as, other changes are faces or that we walk towards as well. So that's the CIA model. I will share it with you, but I use it all the time, on a daily basis, lots of times a day, where I'll just go, okay, what can I control here? Okay, I can control this. Okay, how can I influence the situation or the team that I'm working within? How do we collaborate together? And like, what do I have to accept? And I cannot tell you how powerful it is to actually be in that sense of acceptance, because you let all the emotion go. It is such a powerful thing, particularly if you're working in a company, a bigger company again, where there's lots of complexity as well. So that's thoughts and taking control. Are there any questions on that or comments? Let me just check on the box. I like to do so I can sleep easy knowing I won't forget something in the morning. Yeah. Okay. Nearly there. All right. So lastly, I'd love to just talk about supporting one another. One of the things I've noticed over the last year and a half, I guess, is that sense of communal compassion. Like, we've all used compassion and used our strengths to help ourselves and help others. But I think coming into the next few months, and it is going to be really important that we do support one another. Particularly if we're transitioning back to the office or doing hybrid working or whatever that is. And we do know from all the data that there are mental health issues coming out of COVID. We do know that they're on the increase. We do know that, unfortunately, suicide is on the increase. Mental health, obviously, data even with children as well, which is one of the reasons why we're going into schools as well. So I think this isn't about just kind of companies, just, with new HR policies. We all have an opportunity to create a collective culture where it's okay not to feel okay, and it's absolutely okay to ask for help. We have a fundamental belief at I Am Here that every single one of us goes through things in life. Every single one of us, whether it's financial issues, whether it's, anxiety due to COVID, we all grieve the loss of loved ones. It can be addictions. We all struggle at some stage in our life, and that's absolutely okay. We've all grown up in a culture where we brush things under the carpet and we just get through it. That's all changing, thankfully. And I know you look at kind of teenagers now, they're much more open about talking to each other. So really, this is about all of us developing what we call clear skills, the ability to show compassion. And that is really around how do we, which gives us kind of the motivation to take action, listening to be curious and to understand as opposed to listening to win or to solve, demonstrating empathy and with people, accepting people for who they are as well, and being real. Bringing yourself to work. And I think that's something that we've also benefited from. We've all been inside each other's homes for the last year and a half. We've seen dogs, cats, ducks, cows, people's bedrooms, so it has given us an opportunity to continue to be our real selves. And this is why I'm going to gift you and I'm Here Tribe Members course in self-check after this. But essentially, I'm Here is all around collective culture change. And what we do is we try to merge those lovely insights where everybody on this call wants to help somebody who isn't feeling okay, whether it's a work colleague, a friend, or family member. But when it comes to mental health and well-being, we don't necessarily know what to do. And equally on the other side, if you're not feeling okay, people do not ask for help. And all the data shows that. And even in companies where there's the EAPs and that, there's such low usage. So what we try to do at I'm Here is really create that collective culture where people feel safe to express that they're not feeling okay. And then we empower people. So we basically train people up as tribe members and ambassadors to show you care for tribe members. So, identifying when somebody isn't feeling okay. And that could be just on a Teams call where you notice one of your team members isn't feeling okay, and then reaching out to them afterwards and signposting them to an ambassador. And then for ambassadors, about asking the question and testing your assumption that somebody isn't feeling okay. And last but not least, calling for help. So understanding what's out there, either in the company or the community, that the person can ring and actually get help if they need it. So it really is all about creating that support network for people in the workplace. So just to summarize then, bulletproof through change. And these are there's lots of different ways you can do that. But the first one and the most important is checking in with yourself and where you're at, and understanding where your resilience is and working on that. Developing your growth mindset. We've come through a time where it might have been, damaged somewhat. So working on that. Using the SCARF to understand what's at threat with you when you're facing change. Working with that little monkey in your head and talking to it and having that dialogue with it to manage him or her. And then the ability to take control of change when it's happening to you or your team or in your company as well, by using the me, us, it, and the control. And most importantly, all looking after one another, using your clear skills of compassion, listening, empathy, acceptance, and being real. So that's the summary. I think just to finish up, we do have 850,000 tribe members across the globe now. We work with the likes of Fulcha and Intel and GFG, TLI, CISC, etc., and Core and Uniphar. I know there's some of you on the call here today. So we would love to gift you to become tribe members with, and it's there's a recorded class. It's only 22 minutes, and please let your family do it as well. It's a beautiful course that I think you'll all love. So you can just scan the QR code there to receive that gift. What we also have there, which I mentioned up front, is that self-check. So you can all take that opportunity, and the first step to thriving through change. So I'm just going to leave that up for a minute as well. And other than that, I want to thank you for your time and sticking with me. I know there was a lot there, but as I said, I will be sharing some of those tools with you. So I'm very happy to take some questions, because I know Elaine had allowed for an hour and a half. So
yes, thanks, Caroline. Look, that was absolutely excellent. And I think that summary at the very end, it just brought it all back into perspective. And I think different people in different situations, a different model will work and will be more powerful. So just if anybody has any question in particular that they'd like to share with Caroline, just maybe pop it in the comment box and we'll give you the opportunity to ask it yourself. And thanks as well, Caroline, for being so generous in providing this great resource. Just was maybe a comment and something that I myself, that a huge thing, and as you mentioned, Jerry Hussey in one of our previous sessions mentioned, is about controlling the controllables. And I think once we learn to kind of to let go and only to worry about what we can control rather than what's outside of our control, is very helpful. But just one thing, and I don't know if you've come across it much as well, is when we look at something from different perspectives, it can really open up the options as well. And I think you touched on that as well. And for me personally, if I'm stuck in a situation or a scenario, and be it, a conflict or whatever that is, I tend to look at things from three different perspectives. One is that, look, what if I'm in the situation? What am I thinking or seeing or feeling or doing? And then the second one, I see it, okay, what is it from the other person's perspective? What is this other party seeing or feeling or thinking? And then thirdly, and I love it, just imagine you're a fly on the wall, so that you're not even involved in the conversation. What would somebody that was a fly in the wall think about what's happening? And I think that has really freed me up and helped me an awful lot in many different situations that I myself have found myself in.
Yeah, no, Just a bit of feedback there. Sorry. No, it's a really good point, kind of those different perspectives. And we talk about that even from an empathy point of view, particularly if you're in that kind of conflict situation. But absolutely, you're right. So you kind of call that fly in the wall, you like the observer mode. So you come up from your perspective. The other thing there is you can use visualization there as well. Like I often talk when I'm coaching around sharing your picture, because a lot of it is also about managing expectations. So you might have the same goal, for example, but your vision of what that goal looks like can be very, very different as well. So or your perspective might be very different. So try and paint that picture for the other person, then thinking about what their perspective is. You're absolutely right, and then being that fly in the wall. But it's also important to ask what the perspective of the other person as well, and then to, you know, using your clear skills like listening attentively, because particularly when we're in those moments, we tend to listen with three different types of voices. One is listen to compete, particularly with those close to you, I think is very prominent. Listen to solve, and that's a big one in the workplace. We're all in jobs to solve things, and as somebody's talking, like you're thinking of the solution, but actually listening to understand is absolutely key, because if you listen to understand, you'll listen to somebody's perspective and you'll get it and you'll gain more understanding.
Yeah, no, and that thing about listening and the act of listening, but listening to be curious, I think you mentioned during your thing.
Yeah.
That's something, instead of kind of jumping the gun. And I put the hands up here that I know that I can be guilty, but great feedback coming here in the comment box. I think it's really been a session of self-reflecting and prompting that.
Yeah, look, and that's what it's about, isn't it? You know, there's so much out there in terms of theory and kind of broad stuff, but I think it is important to bring it down to practical terms. So things like sharing the tools such as SCARF or the CIA, you know, there are things that you'll remember. Like I would like to think that people remember that scarf on the wall. What does that mean? How can I bring it in? And the other thing I'd say is tools are also great, but it's about using them. Like working on yourself or your business isn't a magic wand. You know, we all do have to work, and it is a commitment, but it's absolutely worth it. When I think about my own journey, and it's never over, you know, but you know, I've worked hard in the last 10 years and continue to do so, and you know, it's important, you know, it's really important. And I just hope that future generation of kids coming through schools, particularly with programs like I Am Here, that they learn to balance kind of what they would have called the hard skills with the soft skills, and actually we work on both in parallel, and they're both as important, particularly in this complex world with technology, and you know, we're changing as a civilization as well.
Very good. So I'll just hand you over to Kapil for a second, because I know that he's taken maybe one or two questions behind the scenes.
Yeah.
So Kapil, I'll hand it over to you to share.
Sure. Thank you, Elaine, and thank you, Caroline. Caroline, we have a few people who sent me some questions. I would like to just invite them, unmute them, and let them ask questions to you directly, if that's okay.
Yeah, of course.
So the first, I would like to invite Clodagh from Spiritual Earth. So Clodagh, you're good to go now. Please go ahead.
Okay. Hi, Caroline. Clodagh McCumiskey here. We have something in common. I used to always also row when I was in college, so I was really happy to hear about the medal this morning.
Good.
So I really enjoyed your presentation, and I really liked the grounded, practical approach. Yeah. I'd like you to speak about burnout. I'm also in the wellbeing space, and I see, you know, there's a lot of people in burnout mode at the moment. I'd love to hear your thoughts on that.
Yeah, I think burnout is a very interesting area because, again, I think it's one of those phrases that's used quite a lot. I think there's a misconception that burnout is about working late, too much, for too long. And actually, burnout is more than that. Burnout is a combination of things. So burnout can be the result of what's happened to us in the last year. Like we're trying to dabble with so much change and adapt all the time, and it's just exhausting. That's one element. But a big thing for me when it comes to burnout, and I think this is one of the reasons why I became ill in 2013, was that there was a clash of value system. where I was working. And if you're working somewhere where there's a clash of value system, it's ultimately fighting with who you are as a human being. And whilst that's okay short term, what you're doing is you're building up what they call cortisol in your body, which then creates long-term illness. So I would have, for example, ended up getting palpitations 24 hours a day for about 2 years, because it has to come out somewhere. So I think that value system is really important. I think as well, going back to the SCARF model, if you're in a situation where one of those areas are constantly under threat, so your status, you're in a business where you've no autonomy or empowerment, where you're being told what to do all the time, if you missed a promotion 3 years in a row, that will have an impact, as well as working long hours. So it's more complex when people think. So when people say burnout, I'll always say, well, tell me a little bit more about that. What's happening to you? So to get people to look beyond the hours they're working or what they're doing and really think about it, what are the contributing factors to making them feel the way they do?
Yeah, that's great. I really like your holistic response, because normally there's a lot of cynicism associated with it. And what you're doing is you're getting under the bottom of the cynicism.
Yeah,
so great.
You're very welcome.
You're just on mute there, Kapil. He's
Thank
a
you.
rookie, his first day out.
Carolyn, we have next is Alison from Iden Consulting. Alison, over to you.
Thank you, Kapil. Hi, Caroline. Thank you so much for your presentation. So many nuggets of real takeaways there, and your story is really, it's very strong, and I really appreciate your honesty throughout explaining your journey. It really helped to hit it home on a lot of the different points. And something you touched on in there, and something that I've experienced as well, talking to in a lot of networking groups and things, is, coaching now has become a lot more mainstream, and there's so many different parts of it, or components of it, if you would, whether you talk about the lifestyle, the neuroscience aspect, or X, Y, and Z. And I think that as it does become more accepted within society, and it becomes more mainstream, I'd love to hear your opinion as to how you think it should move forward, and whether there should be an element of regulation in there, and if so, in what form, or how should people be able to, the Alison McMurtry's, find the coach that is qualified and can really help her? How do you think that that's going to evolve?
Yeah, it's a brilliant question, and thank you for asking that. Coaching is actually the second fastest growing industry in the world. Would you believe that? I suppose there's a couple of points on it. Maybe I'll just talk about my own journey. So when I did life coaching for myself, it was transformational. It was the best money I ever spent, I have to say. But I loved it so much that I was like, I actually want to be a coach, because I'd always had a passion for people. So I did executive and leadership coaching first, and what I found was that people were coming with a lot more complex issues, and we were only talking about this with Elaine and Kapil beforehand, is that people were coming, and then I go, God, they actually don't need career coaching, they need mental health coaching, because I'm also a mental health coach, and I'd always ask permission to go into that. So I actually decided to then do resilience coaching, mental health coaching, corporate wellbeing coaching, because people are so complex, and you can't separate anything. And that's why I'm passionate about neuroscience as well, not just from the credibility point of view and the science, but also it makes sense. So it's quite a complex area, and I think how coaches develop is very important, so that they're giving the best knowledge and experience that they can for their clients. With regards to the regulation piece, yeah, absolutely. So I'd be a member of the European Mentoring and Coaching Council. I have different certificates which I have to renew. I get CPD'd, everything that I do. So it's quite heavily regulated, and also the International Coaching Federation. So I think if you're looking for a coach, what I'd say is make sure that they have those reputable coaching certificates and qualifications, because you can do coaching courses on Udemy for $9.99. But, you know, like I've been studying for 6 years, like I still study, I do a course every year. So I think looking for those credentials in a coach is important. I think the other piece is that it's all about chemistry. Just because you do the courses doesn't mean that you know they're the right person for you. So that's why coaches always should offer you a chemistry session free of charge. I'll give you an example. I went back to coaching myself. I decided to pick somebody in the US for some reason, just to give me a different perspective. And after 3 sessions, I just said, look, this is not working for me. And I changed coach, and there's nothing wrong with that. So ultimately what I'd say is find the coach that works for you, that you feel that you can trust and gets the most out of. The other thing I'd say is that there's always a confusion between coaching and mentoring. So when you're a coach, the person you're coaching does 95% of the talking. What you do is you provide an inspiring framework for people to move forward in their lives and make positive change. A mentor is actually giving you advice. So if somebody asks me advice, I generally try and get them to work it out. But I will sometimes I'll say, look, I'm going to just move seats now, and I might physically move seat into my mentor. So there is a big difference. So it depends on what you're looking for, whether you want a coach or a mentor, because they are 2 different things. So hopefully that helps.
No, I think that's great advice. I think I think we're in a period where it's a little bit confusing to people still, but I think it's really the path will become clearer as we continue this journey. And thank you for your honesty there.
Yeah, no, totally. And Alison, just one last point is that, you know, the workplace is shifting from that kind of tell people what to do to line managers and leaders being more coach orientated, really empowering their team members. So there probably will be a shift in terms of how people are taught what would have been considered hard skills in the past is going to shift. And I think the softer skills will be the hard skills actually in the new world that we live in.
Totally.
Thank you, Alison.
There's one more question, haven't we, Kapil?
Yeah,
Last
we
question.
have. Absolutely. So, Caroline, next we have a John Fogarty from Remax. John, I read your interesting comment, so go ahead.
Yeah. Hi, Carol.
Hello.
Fabulous listening to you today. Carol, over the last 18 months during lockdown, we developed a new company, a software as a service, which is homebid.ie. And we were on the New Frontiers program, and we got Best Business Award, and we've qualified for a competitive start fund. But one of the guys on the course was a coach, a business coach, one of the lecturers we had, and I've always had coaches over the years. But when we started with him over the last 2 months, he started by your purpose. And I would have done work on my purpose, but one of the exercises, which took about 2 hours, and you went through all these various questions, and then you ended up with just one paragraph. And that one paragraph is your purpose. So every single day, no matter what you do, that's your purpose. So your purpose is totally, it's related to people, it's related to helping people, it's your vision, it's bringing more. And so everybody's purpose is different. Yeah. And then he went into, you just mentioned values there, and he went into core values and how you act under stress and how values can be changed. But so I'm doing a huge amount of work on that at the moment. So you're running multiple businesses, multiple staff. But the fantastic thing is that, it might identify one little thing, in certain values, maybe the way you react to certain things. So I think for anybody, I just can't stress enough for, have a further chat maybe with someone like yourself, Carl. I mean, if everybody here, we read books with Simon Sinek, your why and whatever, but it's very, very hard even when you read these books. But if everybody could actually know 100% what their purpose is, you'll be absolutely thrilled when you see it normally, because it really brings it home to you what you've done everything for. But then your values, if you get a handle on your values and your purpose, the sky's the limit, in my opinion. I just think it's, and you mentioned burnout there. I think a lot of guys and ladies burn out because they actually don't really know what they're about. And other people can work 23 hours a day and never burn out. It's just because it's their mindset, and that little monkey is keeping a control on the monkey because he's jumping around all the time. But sometimes the monkey comes up with great ideas, but you just have to keep focused on what you're doing. So I just think coaching, I couldn't stress, give money, even if you can't afford it, get it somewhere, like, you know, spend decent money on a coach, not €9.99, just get money from somewhere and do 6 months with a coach. And I can tell you, we talk about 10xing, it's 100x in my opinion.
Thanks, John, and I really appreciate that. And you've brought up some lovely points there just around the value thing, but just going back to the purpose piece. And again, I think people think it's a big complex thing, because that would be part of my wellbeing coaching as well, as kind of people, it's called a perma wheel, but people kind of go, oh my God, purpose, meaning, what am I meant to have a purpose and a meaning? And they get quite stressed about it, because when you look at people, particularly in business, like, I've got this big purpose and it's up here to attain, and it's not actually about that. So when I worked on my purpose, actually, just to share it with you, it's not even a paragraph. I want to be the person that I needed when I was 14, 28, 39 and 45. That is my purpose. I worked with somebody recently and we're working through this, and her purpose is family and friends. Connecting with family and friends is her purpose. So it doesn't have to be this big complex piece in terms of when it comes to your personal purpose. Obviously, business is different. And I love the fact that you mentioned Simon Sinek, because I think that book, like Finding Your Why, is lovely. The simplicity of it is like, why are you doing what you're doing in business? How are you doing it? And the what is actually last. You know, like Apple don't sell computers, they sell a dream about challenging the status quo, for example. So working out the why of what you're doing something, you know, when you get up out of bed in the morning, you go, why am I doing this? So even like, I'm doing the best job in the world that serves my purpose in terms of why I'm here, but there's still shitty days where I wake up and go, I can't get out of bed. And I'll go, why am I doing this? Because I am changing the world, I hope.
Very good.
Thank you, John.
Thank you, John.
Elaine, sorry, I know we are on the time, but I just would like to invite one or two more, if with your permission. And Nessa has a very good comment. Nessa, can you please ask Caroline directly? You are on mute.
I'm unmuted now, am I?
You're perfect.
Yep, we can hear you, yeah.
Okay. I was just interested, Caroline, when you were talking about, you know, praising the particular thing that the person did rather than saying he did very well. We're a team of teachers. So everybody is kind of equally valuable. They're all inspirational. They're all very good. I would have thought it would cause division if you gave rewards and to an individual and left other people out. So I was inclined to praise the team or do an event for the team. And yet I can see maybe it's motivating for others who are maybe trying harder than some of the, you know, how do you deal with that? Like by praising somebody, you're actually kind of disempowering somebody else?
Yeah, I suppose, well, first of all, it's always good to celebrate team success because, you know, particularly if you're working in that environment, there's lots of ways you can do praise. So like that could be just tapping somebody on the shoulder outside and saying, look, you know, within that project we're working, like there was particular things I really loved in terms of your contribution to that. You did X, Y, and Z, and I just wanted you to know that. So it's about the individual value that people bring to the team. So it's not about highlighting one or the other, or you might sit in a group and say, big team effort, fantastic. You 5 people. Mary, I loved the way you did this because that impacted the success this way. John, I love the way you did that because that contributed to that. And even within a team perspective, you're praising them all for their unique and individual contribution to whatever project you were doing, or you can do it outside of the group as well. And sometimes it doesn't have to be big things. Like sometimes I'll just text one of the girls in work and go, listen, in that meeting, I loved the way you did that because that got me thinking about X, Y, and Z. So it doesn't have to be big gestures. It can be those simple little, you know, those thank yous or those praises throughout the working day as well.
Okay, thank you. Thanks.
Thank you, Nessa. The last I have a question from Chris as well. But before Audrey asks a question, Audrey, you can ask directly.
Hi, Caroline.
Hello.
Your presentation this morning was absolutely brilliant. Our company, Taylor and Wolf, we've well, it kind of feels like it's recent, but it's kind of over the last 1.5 to 2 years where we've changed our brand. And as part of doing that, we, you know, went through in terms, I suppose, of business, our purpose and our values, and what we wanted to recreate when we relaunched as Taylor and Wolf. But I heard what you were saying in regards to yourself and coming in to teams within companies. And I suppose I'm just interested, how do you do that? What would the company expect to gain from it? Or just expect that what would happen? And I suppose just your general view on yourself going into a company. How does it happen?
So essentially what I would do is I'd have a conversation with people, and I try to understand what your needs are. It's not about me selling me or anything. It's about understanding what you need, what opportunities are there, what challenges are there, and then providing that framework for you to help meet those needs. So whether it's like under the umbrella of I'm Here, what we might say is, well, actually, you might say to me, look, mental health and well-being is, it's not great at the moment. We go, well, look, we can start with the I'm Here piece, get everybody looking after each other. We can do some resilience training over that. We can do some leadership training. So it really depends on me understanding what your business is, and then we adapt it based on what you need.
And that, I suppose it's hard to say kind of like at the moment, have you been doing that over Zoom? Is that speaking directly with individuals and then doing it as a group session?
So it's a good question. So obviously we've all been virtual for the last 18 months and we'll probably continue to do so. Like for example, hopefully in September now, I'll be one of our clients is CISC. So I'll be going to all their building sites, talking to all the lads. So that's going to be good fun. So yeah, it's a mixture of things. So again, I'd look at the dynamic of your company and say, well, what suits you? Is it we might do some one-to-ones, we might do some group sessions. So it really just depends, to be honest. Again, what we tried to we had a meeting with one of our new clients yesterday and we said, well, what's so dynamic? Like how many people are on kind of in the manufacturing plant? How many are in offices? What's the best way to communicate with them? So we kind of work on the best way to engage with your team members.
Okay.
Good stuff.
Yeah.
Thanks, Caroline. And I know that we probably...
You're welcome. Thank you.
We have a last question there from Chris Macken, I think. So Chris, do you want to just unmute yourself there and we...
Thanks. So the question was just in relation to purpose. I'm probably overthinking it, but should there be a KPI attached to the purpose? Because I just think it's such a fundamental thing that I need to start with and really work on. Or am I thinking about it in terms of SMART goals? Like, should there not be a KPI linked? Or yeah, that's my thoughts around it.
Not really. Like, looking for your purpose or the meaning is just a little bit of a process. It is just understanding yourself a bit better. So I think, back to John's point, like understanding what your values are, understanding what your strengths are, what's important to you as well. Like I always go back and think, like sometimes when I'm interviewing people, I say, but what was your favorite job in the world? And like I always answer, one of my favorite jobs is working in Next or Euro Disney when I was like a shop assistant, because I really enjoyed helping others and making them feel happy. And I was the honest one where if a top didn't suit them. So that was a clue to me that I was saying, obviously I have a real desire to help people feel better. And that was when I was 18. And then I was like, I didn't change my career until my 40s. So, and then when I was in the workplace, I used to be called, like in Coke, I was called like the lioness, because I was so protective over my team and driving my team. And that was another clue to me going, you love people thriving. So it took all my job experiences for me to understand what my purpose and meaning was. So it's about just sitting down and understanding yourself and like what makes you tick, what were the things that you love doing, like where do you find your flow? So it's just a bit of a purpose. I don't think it's necessarily about a KPI, because this is also about being good to yourself and being true to you. So it's not about hard data and KPIs. This is just about you living the best life.
Brilliant. Very good answer. Excellent, Caroline. We just really appreciate. I know that we've gone over, and for those of you
okay.
that have stayed on with us, I think
you.
it's been really, really worthwhile, and you've really shone a light on what I think you pre-framed at the start, is that sometimes people, and it can be said that a lot of this is soft skills and soft stuff, but actually it's hardcore. And as John, I think you put it very eloquently there when you gave your recent example of the benefit that you felt when you actually stopped and took stock of, values, mission, purpose, and all of that. So Caroline, we'll definitely be sharing some notes with everybody, and you've agreed to share some of your notes, but also some of those links that we spoke about right at the start. And for each and every one of you for staying on with us here this afternoon, thank you so much. Interestingly enough, I've got quite a few private messages, and they've been around. I really want to, I'd love my children in primary school to know more about this. So we're very, very happy about that you are getting into primary schools, and quite a few have related their own children actually said that, hang on here, I'm having a chat with the kids at lunchtime. So that was a very, very interesting sign.
Good. And we're recruiting schools for the pilot. So if anybody wants to get in touch, it is primary schools for now. And if anybody is interested, do let me know. And if you can introduce me to the principal, we'd be very happy to talk to them. So just you can let me know.
That's certainly something on my action list for my local primary school, because I think you can never start with this too young, with the developing this type of a mindset. I've also got a few messages as well for anybody that's interested to know more about the Business All Stars and the work we do. Just go to businessallstars.ie. If you want to know more about how you can become part of the Business All Stars, just register your interest and we can have a chat. So just want to have everybody here, just 2 dates for your diary. On Wednesday, the 11th of August, we'll be having our next entrepreneurs meetup, and we'll be meeting with Philip O'Callaghan and Louise Dawson, 2 of our great Business All-Stars. And then on top of that, our next leadership series will be on September the 3rd. And we're teaming up with One for All as part of the Shop for Crumlin, a fundraiser for Crumlin. The whole theme is laughter in the workplace. So we'll certainly have a few characters who I'm not allowed to mention yet online that will leave you tickling in your belly. So if you're on to have a laugh, put the date of September the 3rd in your diary, and we'll be in touch since. So on that note, again, I'd like to thank you again, Caroline. It's a pleasure as always. And we're great advocates of the IM here at the All Ireland Business Foundation. So thanks again for openly sharing, and for everybody for contributing in the chat. I know that I have certainly saved the chat box anyway. So thank you so much, and enjoy the rest of your day, everybody.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye, everybody.